Okay. Oh, good morning, Milan. How you doing? You know, you start the day off, and it's a day off work. That's gonna hurt. We might turn the camera off today. I don't know. And you have a migraine. Just never a fun start to the day. So we'll see how long I can last with this light in my face. Ugh. Not to complain. Not to complain. Plenty of other things to do. Okay. What? Why are you trying to restore anything? So, so I've been clicking around in this pretty much every time I've just been sat at the computer since yesterday's stream. And I've been trying to think about how I'm presenting the information. What am I presenting? Is it useful? Why do I need certain information? And I'm trying to figure out. I don't want to spend time doing UI UX because I'm just bad at it, and I'm not gonna understand it until I see someone use it. So, but if I don't get the right ideas in there, it's going to be difficult. So you've got that fine balance, right? Of I could put this in front of someone and say, "Hey, go off and use this." Obviously, I'm not going to put yellow bots around stuff. I just wanted to see that it was, you know, differentiated. Um, um, how the heck do I shut WhatsApp down? My brother is messaging me. Go away. Um, so how do I understand how people use the application is kind of what I'm trying to figure out. Like what seems useful for me might not be useful for somebody else. And do I spend time trying to figure that out? I know it's important. I know that it's very important to make sure that the information is clearly represented. But if I don't show something or highlight something in the right way, I technically hide that thing. And it's one of those things that people come along and go, "Oh, you can do that." So I don't want to get into that world. I'm right now. The app's simple, right? It's well, it's far beyond simple, right? But it's getting to the point where I can use it. Um, Maybe we dig into this though. Maybe we dig into this. So from the on top of the planning bar. Wow, Twitch. Could you make that bar bigger? September is over, but gift sub discounts are still here. Okay, thank you. Good job, Sarah Bart. So I think introducing status might be the next best thing to kind of um introducing status might be the next best thing to introduce the concepts, right? Because it's like then I can start thinking about swim lanes and start looking at actual work. Um, I don't need pointing, etc., because pointing for me is not going to be a differentiator because I'm a one-person team, um, which means that I'm not going to get any benefits from that. So maybe that's why I focus. No, low key, no, nobody. So yeah, I'm just kind of going through it and thinking about how I'm using the application and what I want to do next, particularly what I want to focus on. And Loki's being a complete butt. No, that's medicine. You can't get that. In a little bit, I'll open up Discord as well. Being that I have a day off, I can take a bit longer on stream. And if anyone wants to chat, they can do. I'm not making a community day, but I will open Discord. Um, which reminds me, gotta close that. I'm stuck on how far I want to go. Um, how do I do? How do you set yourself? How do you set yourself to away on WhatsApp? Just want to mute notifications. It's driving me crazy. Oh, okay. Worry about that later. So let's get this committed. I think requirements from tasks from requirements is working. We have the views working. We can attach the tasks. Um, Things are clearly okay there for right this second. As far as the workflow goes, I don't think it's perfect. I think basically the problem there lies in the and the reason I'm not too panicked about it right now is, and I just shut it down so I can't show it. But when I add a task, there's no indicator on the planning item whatsoever that a task was added. And what I'm thinking is, once I show the status of the tasks, then um, then that'll be easy to see because there'll be a visual indicator showing the number increases, etc. Um, So I'm thinking that's going to test that. But it does beg the question, like, again, I don't want to focus on UI UX, but to some extent I have to focus on UI UX because it's going to drive the decisions a little bit as to what I do or how I do it, etc. So um as much as I would like to say I'm not being UI UX driven, I kind of am, right? Did I update that rather than push it? I did. No harm. So let's go do 2 PRs. Create the pull request. Tasks from requirements. So I don't know whether this is a Rider thing or a Visual or a .NET thing. I assume a .NET thing, but we have a replacement for solution files. Finally, we have SLNX, which is basically gets rid of all the GUIDs and noise in there, and it's just a solution description. I love this classic C#, suggesting there's another type of C#. I haven't seen or heard about this, so which actually reminds me, what is SLNX? Why you should not use the new. Oh, we've got an opinion. So this completely passed me by. Since Visual Studio 2022 17.10, we can see a new solution file format with SLNX. For decades, the SLN format relied on Microsoft proprietary file format, verbose, hardly readable, and based on GUIDs. Yeah. Solution file persistence model. Okay. I like how they gave almost the exact same artwork. Yeah, so that could trip me up in terms of morning, Fish Snubble. How you doing? Sorry, I didn't see the message. The message didn't pop up in the chat window. I wonder why. That does. Using XML for solution files? Should have used a Rust DSL. um, all of this though, classic C#. So we formatted tasks. That was it. We added a requirement ID to the SQL there. Thank you. Put a like on the stream. Thank you very much. It's like you don't think of it when you're on Twitch that people should do anything other than, hey, hang out. If you want to follow, follow, right? And I don't even necessarily promote that, but on YouTube, to get views, likes increase engagement, comments and chat increase engagement, which means that YouTube shows you off more. So the more you're found, the more you're found. It's kind of challenging. So we have task, we have the requirements. We do key down on that one. This key down needs some work. It's a helper function because I don't like yellow squiggles. That makes some sense. You found. Yeah. Well, just by you chatting on YouTube and hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel, right? That engagement, YouTube measures as, oh, this is worth promoting. So the more people that do it, YouTube prioritizes it in terms of showing it to other people looking for similar things, right? And there aren't a lot of development streams that I can find on YouTube. Yeah, so I've kind of said, okay, the key press will do the action, but I need to learn more about doing the action because if it has parameters, it makes a mess. Move tasks around because a lot of the task stuff is based upon shared behavior. You can buy an ad campaign for your streams. Yeah. Uh, paid job. Yeah, you get 0.0001 cents per subscriber you gain. Yeah, I don't think my streams are going to hit the lofty heights of 20,000 viewers, right? So, yeah, an ad campaign might be a little bit. Leave it, achieve it. Yeah, I think the content in the presentation is severely lacking in the ability to gather 20,000 people. Why did my unit test fail? Oh, that isn't good. The heck? Oh, that's not good. Yeah, that's never happening. Um, no. In all seriousness, I've long since given up on. Well, I haven't given up. I've just decided that I'm not streaming for entertainment value. I'm streaming because I want to share what I do and how I do it, and see if other people want to share and contribute their experiences and opinions along the way. So that everyone can grow. So I don't. There's a reason my stream is very quiet. There's a reason my stream doesn't have lots of noise and sounds and things like that. And it's just not what I care about. Oh, this is not good. This is very bad. Please load the projects. I found my first bug working with the SLNX files. Okay, just taking its time. I find your voice soothing and relaxing, bro. Thank you. For reference, that is my actual brother. um, okay, so that builds. Does it run? Actual brother, yes. That's not good today. Oh, come on. Not what I wanted to see. Oh well, it knows the pull request. That's pretty cool. All checks didn't pass though, did they? I fixed that before though. Task receiver. Yeah. Hey, Raven, how you doing? Oh, Dark Raven. G'day. How's things? Things are good. Enjoying a little Friday night. Nice. Nice. There is no argument given that corresponds to the required parameter created by identifier. Oh, did this build out of sequence? So if I go to here, join Friday night is a good thing. I have the day off work today, so I am going to stream for a little bit. Then possibly play some Gran Turismo. It's funny. I got a Samsung Neo G7, Odyssey G7, Neo G7. It's a 43-inch monitor, but I was on a 32-inch 1080p Samsung TV before, and the difference that the massive screen makes, like it didn't even dawn on me that it's a much bigger screen until it actually arrived and I saw it in place. But just playing the game on that screen is a completely different experience. So I'm looking forward to playing more, and it's 4K screen as well. So yeah, so I can't merge this feature, or I shouldn't merge this feature, because otherwise I'm going to get into a GitHub Actions challenge. So I think this is caused by the fact that test runs locally. There's no argument that corresponds. We're going to ignore all the warnings for now. I'm not messing around with that. Rerun all summary. Rerun all jobs. That's building again. So what it's done is it's looking at the other, because it needs the files from the other repo. So it actually goes and pulls the other repo, but it pulls with the same branch name as the one I'm on. So it can't deal with the fact that, so if there was no changes to that other repository, then I'd be in a bit of a mess here. So I'm just deferring that job until later. I'm putting it off, which is probably not good, but yeah. The .NET build there doesn't require the SLN or the SLNX, so I'm not worried about it picking up files that are missing. Just hoping this goes through, otherwise it's just going to delay me some more. There is no argument given that corresponds. So what is it talking about? So the task receiver, the file that it's complaining about is here. I did change it. I didn't commit it because I'm clearly an idiot. Update tasks view to include a requirement. Commit. So what I'm going to bet is that there's a change to the receiver. Oh, look, the task receiver changed. So that's why, because the code doesn't match. Because I've actually pushed the change to the update, so now the code doesn't actually build. Well, actually, it did build, didn't it? It just didn't. It just complained when it went to run the tests. That's weird. Pass identifier from receiver. Include requirement parameters on view task. Commit. Okay. And then the view we move it around. Tasks detail now includes requirement associated with task. Grid shows planning item title location. Things might go a little bit smoother now on that build. I don't think there's any foundation changes there. I think I checked them and completely neglected to check these. That should push. I do like how this knows that it's against a PR. That's nice that it's indicating that. So as always, if you have any thoughts, questions, opinions on what I'm doing, you're more than welcome to ask. Today, I'm going to try and introduce status on the tasks. So essentially, let's get this up and running so I can demonstrate. I've got a lot of There's a lot of chicken and eggs going on right now. I've got like to make progress, to make things usable, I've got to introduce new features. I don't want to do too much on the UI, but I need to do stuff on the UI. I need to think about how the UI works and what challenges that poses. There's all manner of things that I need to do. So my head is spinning a little bit. I'll be honest, in that I'm just trying to think about all the different things that I want to achieve, and I want to be there now. I don't, I don't want to do I don't want to do all that programming stuff, right? I want to be there now. I want to get this done and have it running, and yeah, it helps if you run everything. So but I'm kind of hoping that I get to the point very soon where I can actually capture the requirements I have of the software. We did have ideas, future ideas, tagging, prioritization, capacity planning. That's a planning item side. Ability to close a planning item. We kind of did that. Um, um, we did that. We did status on that. Tagging, we haven't done that yet. Prioritization, create configurable receiver configuration. That's a technical requirement. We did that. Attachments on requirements, we haven't done that yet. Comment store updating not working properly. That's a bug. Stats for PI should be moved to table and have admin UI. That's basically the status, preparing, ready for planning, etc. It's my distinction. Like, and I kind of talked about this yesterday, in multiple ways, on and off stream. But one of the things I want to consider is, and I'll turn. I don't know if it's correct to term it this way, so I'm open to anyone's thoughts on how to term this. But there's two styles, or two areas of functionality, right? There's what I'm referring to as a first-class citizen, and that is anything that I believe belongs in the application for the good of the application, right? So status straddles that line a little bit in so much as it is a necessary thing. Understanding where the planning item actually sits is a very necessary thing, right? You want to know when you've finished working on something. The review date is a core application concept. It is got to be in there, right? That is something I feel is a differentiator. But then if I want to provide the users the ability to say, assign priorities or assign value to a planning item, should I dictate how that works, or should I provide the user the feature to extend the system in the way they feel is necessary? So if they feel value, an ad is going to start in a minute. I don't know if I can't remember if Twitch tells you that, but an ad will start in about a minute. But I appreciate anybody watching the ads. It does help keep the ads away on pre-rolls for anyone joining the stream in the next 40 minutes, so they can get in to see this riveting content. So the question I keep asking myself is, do I need to add that as a feature versus do I need to add that as a option? And custom fields are a long, long, long way away, right? I cannot even contemplate how I'm going to do custom fields properly yet, because I'm just not at that point with the application stack where I can consider that feature. However, there are things that I think could be added to the system to allow people to extend it and customize it the way they want. Jira has that concept. Hey Scott, welcome in. How you doing? So, how do you build UI? So this is a combination of Angular with PrimeNG and Tailwind. So for kind of laying out the panels and stuff, it's all Tailwind. For positioning stuff, Tailwind, but then for the actual styling, that's all PrimeNG's themes. Right now, the idea is just it's enough to kind of get the idea across, but not what I want to be, where I want to be in the end. I never touched Angular. Is it more difficult than React? I find it easier than React. Maybe it's just the way I think about stuff. From a behavior standpoint, I don't like having uh, ad is over. Oh, okay. It says ad break ends in another minute 22, so however that works. Okay, so I kind of like how my code is my code, my UI is my UI. I don't like the whole templating thing and merging things together. Um, so React just didn't sit right in my head. I, that said, I've been tempted to pick it up and try again recently just to see. Um, Now I've got a lot more time on Angular and some of the patterns make a bit more sense. Would I be able to pick up React as quickly, and how would I feel about it? I'm not building this right now. This is not being built to be mobile friendly. The entire application is definitely not mobile friendly. It just won't scale properly. Right. That's a deliberate choice right the second. So, oh, don't start this, Loki. No, nobody. Come on. He's going to start the jumping all over me again. Hello, pal. You're okay, buddy. You're okay. You're not in trouble. Got to lie down. Yeah. Well, one of. We have Loki and Taylor. Taylor's curled up at my feet, but Loki wanted to come and say hi. You're going to stand up, aren't you? Come here. Come here. Come here. Can I have hugs? Look. Can I have a hug? Can I have a hug? No, we're not getting hugs today. We're just gonna sit there and cry at me. Oh dear. Oh, come on. Come on. Okay. Oh. If you're gonna stand up and make me look like a weirdo, at least you gotta show your face. That's my headphones, bud. Hold on. Let me take my headphones off. So yeah, this is Loki. Yeah. They used to realize that I was talking and then sit quietly. But recently he's decided that he wants to be part of this. You want to be a star, bud? You like your scratches? Is that what you're getting? Yeah. Loki, I can't do work if you're sat on my lap. Come on. So let's see if I can do anything with him sat here. I'm not hopeful, but we'll see. Yeah, Loki's back, yeah. Yeah. Right, bud. They spend a lot more time with me. So yeah, not surprising. He's actually still stood up on the he's stood up on the floor just leaning across me, laying in my arms now, so and he's quite happy. You got a big head. You need a bath. They go out and dig in the back. Okay. Can I do some work? Um so we're gonna squash and merge this commit. Yeah, attachment request. I'm comfortable that it's working. I'm not gonna go back on that one, so that's fine. Let's do this one. Merge, squash and merge. Confirm squash and merge. Okay, buddy. And money off. Forgot our Thanksgiving. The date is different in Canada. Yeah. Okay. Go on. Yeah, because we have a company holiday off today, and like, oh, by the way, if you're in Canada, you get a 4-day weekend. Excuse you? No. You sound like a Wookiee. You actually sound like a Wookiee, and your breath stinks. Okay, I'm gonna be right back. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. They have food, they have water, they have out. So if he comes back again and does that, that means he's just trying to get attention. Okay. So we need to check out that on that. So what holiday? For me, today is just a company holiday. So they just give in any month that doesn't have a federal holiday, they they give us a day off. So that's today. Okay, that should update. Come on. I'm gonna have to go through the warnings at some point. I just put them off because nothing's critical. That's going to upset me. Did I pull? That suggests I haven't pulled that branch. The fact that that's there. There you go. Oh, here he comes. So let's take a look at. Okay. Uh, Wish they'd fix this site to remember. Like, I get the whole we don't want to put cookies on your machine sort of thing, but PrimeNG, if I want to open it off on screen, I have to open it off screen so that I can put it in dark mode first. So what I'm looking at here is, do they have any drag and drop stuff? Like that, like drag and drop. So we're going to create. Hi, Dispel. How you doing? I look comfy in the hoodie. It's one of my favorite hoodies. It's falling apart at the sleeves. um, yeah, so that's interesting. Really? A refresh, does it? Awesome. Screen scroll broken much? Okay. Um, Drag indicator. So that's just that and that. That's fine. Okay, but they do have drag and drop, which is good. So let's run the app and let's talk about how we do this. So for any given feature, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try and use the tooling we have, and I'm not necessarily dog fooding it in that I'm not actually trying to create real requirements, but I'm going to do enough to highlight the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think that's the best demonstration for why I'm building what I'm building. If you're new to the stream, if you have any questions, thoughts, opinions, feel free. I'm always open to discussion about this project, about software in general. This project is a little bit big and a little bit intimidating to see. So if you're new to development, it's still okay to ask questions. It doesn't have to be, uh, this level of development to talk. I always want to make sure that's clear. Like I'm not trying to. I'm demonstrating how I'm building an application on this stream. I'm not saying this is how you should develop. I'm not saying this is the only way to develop. I'm not saying this is the best practice or anything like that. So, go outside. Outside is available to you. I'll be right back. I have an issue. Okay, sorry about that. I had to check on the dogs. Taylor will actually need to go to the bathroom. TBD too humble for Twitch. I just think ego kind of gets in the way, and I don't want to be egotistical, and I don't want to be. I've seen too many times what happens when people say you should do this and then it doesn't pan out. So why share what I do? So if there are questions, if there are thoughts or opinions, feel free. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget, I've got to figure out this pitch properly because I don't like saying it. But if you're watching and you're enjoying what you're seeing, it's worth dropping a like. Dropping likes on YouTube increases engagement. So I very much appreciate that. And I have uploaded all of the Liquid Sky content, all 152 prior videos are available there for hours of something that I will not even try to say is entertainment. But if you like what you're watching, don't forget to subscribe. And yeah. I don't make a lot of specific content as well, because I don't believe I have everything I do is kind of random and driven by requirement rather than driven by desire to tell other people. Can I get a synopsis of what you're building or your goal? Absolutely. So this is Project Liquid Sky. I have long since worked in software. I've worked in software for 25 years. I started using Jira pretty much when it was launched in an organization I was at. And I've seen throughout the years many different attempts at planning, at project management, at development tasks, and all sorts of ways of getting software developed. And every time I've seen it, we get stuck on what fits where. And I have some opinions on the ways things should work. So, Liquid Sky breaks things down a little differently than other project management tools. It starts with planning. So a planning item is a piece of it's a component that a product manager thinks they want. And so create tasks for requirements for planning item, right? So as a developer, the requirements set out in the planning component of the system do not align to how the software breaks down. If we try and fit the software development into the requirements, we may miss components of the system or misunderstand the technical needs. So the idea is here that the product manager comes along and writes this down. And this is the story, essentially, right? They can work on this, they can build this out. The expectation is that they can build the requirements. What are they expecting to happen here? And this is not technical, this is purely staying away from the technical side, which is what is suggested when normally writing stories. But they build the requirements here. When they feel that it's ready for planning, right, they mark it's ready for planning. The developers can work with them and go through these requirements, and they can say, okay, we think we need to do we need to do something on this. So view the requirement, or this is more relevant because this is what I'm about to work on. I want to see task progress against requirements. So here on the top of the bar of the planning item, I should see 3 numbers representing backlog, in progress, and done. So here, yeah. So the goal is to separate out what the developers work on from what the planning sees, but tie everything together so that, because this should become my my catchphrase as such. Jira is a management tool. It is not a software development tool, right? It is a tool to help people see where you are with things. So what I want to do is provide the functionality for the developers to work on stuff without worrying about all the rest of the management stuff. They can know what they've got to work on because there's a backlog of work they've agreed to. There's a sprint that they agree to, and all the work that's in there is work that they know is to be done. And everything else is just reporting up above. So there's no reporting at the tasks side of thing. Reporting is from planning and initiatives, etc. What stops GitHub from stealing this? Nothing. I'm streaming it. If someone can go along and develop something that works the same way as this, or it has been developed and I just haven't seen it done, maybe Jira does support this sort of workflow and I've just never seen it, and someone educates me that way, then everyone benefits, because I think that it does. Thank you. It does solve a problem. So what this does is it prevents us from getting stuck on well, it can't be technical, right? So we can build the technical components out. So for any given requirement, there could be one or many tasks associated with that thing. And we're going to get to this, like the number and stuff. So how many times have you seen a requirement on the top of the planning item? I should see 3 numbers. Like, so I want to see, 0, 1, 2 or whatever, or 0, 3, 1 or whatever appear here. How many times have we seen something like that? And then the actual technical requirement underpinnings of just achieving that are massive, right? So to do that, well, we don't have the concept of status. So we need the concept of status. So tasks now need status associated to them. Okay, so how do you move it between status? Well, we need a planning board, right? So to be able to do this requirement, it spawns a whole need for things, right? So this is for here, and this is for the item, right? So this is for the individual requirement. So that's the numbers here, and that's the numbers that will show up there. So it is, so 2 requirements could spawn many tasks. So the idea is you can go in here right now and you can say add a task. So on the top of the requirement, I should see 3 numbers above. This represents a task associated with a particular, right? So we need to do filter GraphQL for by requirement identifier. No. Point. Does it let you track like libraries used for components? Not at this point. I'd be interested in that use case in terms of planning. You mean if you're building something and you need to know about what libraries, etc. So this would be provide query parameters, provide counts in view for the progress of tasks associated with requirement. Oh, interesting. So ultimately, this task board here is the backlog right now. This is the backlog. And this doesn't need grooming in quite the same way because these are all associated to requirements that exist. So this is all technical, whereas this is all product, right? Which is okay. Now, if we delete a requirement, it will delete the associated tasks because there's nothing to do there, right? If tasks are in progress, that's a whole different challenge. So I'm kind of building out that behavior. So I'm interested in experiences. I'm interested in learning more about you. There's also, if you're interested in talking more about this, there is a Discord link in the panels below that you're more than welcome to join. There's a channel for Agile project management. And, I'm always looking for people to share their experiences, what they like, what they don't like. If they feel that I'm not using Jira properly because the way I'm working here, it's always interesting to see how people do things. In Jira, you can create a story and you can attach tasks to the story. So you could task things out, and that is a recommended way. But but it's not always easy to work in the UI for Jira that way. And again, it's technical. So how deep do you go on the technical part? So the goal here would be that the product team sit down, figure this out, then they go to the developers and they mark it ready for planning. And the developers sit down and go through this. So, oh, well, that requires this, and this requires this, and this. But then the product team can tie them back to their actual requirements without having them split out. So it aids in readability. Ultimately, there'll be notifications, so you'll be able to subscribe to changes on things. So you might say, okay, well, I care if the review date of this passes, or I care if the status of this doesn't move to in progress within the next 7 days, right? So the ability to alert on things will be there as well. And we've built out some rudimentary components right now. So this dashboard is driven off that notifications thing where another user changed this and now it appears in here. It's not perfect, but the basis is there. And overall, from an architecture standpoint, this is what Liquid Sky looks like. There's the client, and we have an API gateway in front, which right now is YARP. That's a recent change. The client, when you make a request to save something, it has there's independent APIs with independent storage. This is not microservices. This is more modular monolith. These group like behaviors and like data. So if I'm saving a requirement, that goes into planning. If I'm saving a task, that goes into tasks. When data's saved in these, they're very simplistic. They just save the data. There's not a lot of behavior or calculation, etc., involved because these just have the data. And then they publish an integration event onto Kafka, and other systems consume it. So the view is consuming that, so it consumes planning and tasks and tenants and everything. So the view database is probably the biggest database. Changes picks out those things as well and calculates differences between the last time it saw that data. So it snapshots. Here's what I saw last time. Here's what I have now. Here's the differences, and it publishes out the changes. Pipeline is actually a refiner to the changes. It will pull those changes out, and it will store all the data itself, and it will enrich this data and publish more meaningful change events so that you can actually say, okay, well, it changed from A to B, or it changed, the name changed from this to this, and this lookup changed to this value, etc. So it moved to this. And again, notifications is listening to these events and also reacting to them. So if we're subscribed to something changing, it can listen to the simple change event and say, oh, yeah, this changed. But if it's a specific piece of data, maybe you want to say, hey, I want to know when it changes from A to B, then the pipeline change is the one that it's going to consume and stuff. And communications is its own component, and that's built for sending emails and doing stuff. Yeah, so it's a complicated system so far. This is about a year now. I've been working on this about a year. And maybe at most about 14, 15 hours a week. Most weeks, actual development time is probably like 5 hours. Because I own most of it I do on stream. So, which is about 2 hours a day normally. And then some weekends and stuff. The project overall is broken up as well right this second. So the core messaging components and core shared behaviors are stored in a foundation is the name of that. And then the intent is to have a management backend labeled control tower that will do things like tenant management and user management, global user management, etc., and track things like that. So if there's lookups that need to be shared across the system or things like that, they can all be managed from a central backend. And that is outside of just this piece. So we have 80 .NET projects. The code breaks down pretty much. If you saw this, you'd be able to go and find out the relevant code from here. Like I said, the foundation project is there. That is actually a different repository. The front end, again, is in there, but it's actually, I use WebStorm for developing on the front end. It's all Angular front end right now, but it's all API driven. There's no link between the API and the whatever. And it's a GraphQL API. So we have full GraphQL integration there. So that is useful. And there we go. Okay, let's get swimlanes worked on. And again, if anybody, I'm always open to discussing this. I'm always open to questions and opinions. Um, so I kind of code as a background noise to everything else. It's not necessarily I have to make progress. A noble goal. I mean, ultimately, I've learned over the years that what I care about most is being able to give developers a stress-free workflow. That's what I care the most about. And how can I do that? Well, if I can get all, so I've heard so many people say, oh, I hate Agile, I hate Scrum, right? And it's not because Scrum or Agile are particularly bad. They're a good concept. The problem is that once we get involved with them, we misinterpret how they're meant to be done, or our software and practices don't fit within that framework. And we can't, and we start trying to stuff what we do into what they do and calling it the same thing, or we misunderstand how it's meant to be done. And yeah, so I'm not trying to reinvent Agile. I'm not trying to say that it's wrong. I'm trying to provide a tool, which is ironic because it's, people and communication over, process and tooling, etc. But I still feel that this checks that box of, okay, well, it's now making it so we can break it down. And I'm trying to demonstrate it by using it, right? So there's another, so, and this is something that happens to me all the time, and I see it, and I've seen it many times, right? As a product manager, I want to see task progress against requirements. Okay, so let's go into this a bit more. See overall progress on top of a planning item. So they want to see the planning item says, I have, let's say I have 15 tasks associated with the 2 requirements. I want to see, 7 in backlog, 4 in sprint, 3 in progress, 0 completed or whatever. And I think that added up to 14 and I said 15, but whatever. Not my point. Actually, let's do some artwork. Let's do some artwork. Because that is my forte. Um, let's be professionals. Let's use proper software. Okay, it might be slightly out of date, but it's fine. Okay. So what I'm suggesting is with this requirement, I'm saying that what I want to see is, I want to see 10. Oh, come on. It's going to be a pain, isn't it? Do I have it? Oh, there we go. 40 white. So what I'm expecting to see is something like 10, 4, 0, right? And the goal of that is I can see the total number. And then similarly, this requirement, again, my awesome artwork skills will this should say 4, 2, 0, and this should say 6, 2, 0, right? So the goal is to show these numbers. Now, to the product manager, that's all that's involved to get this done, right? What developers need to do is ask questions, and this is where we fail. We fail a lot on this piece. We don't ask questions. So, if the developers aren't thinking enough ahead, they're going to take these requirements and say, "Oh, yeah, okay, we can just do that. We can show these numbers." Oh, well, hold on. We don't have status. Oh, what does status mean? Well, status is where it is in the life cycle, right? Okay, so we don't have a life cycle. Well, if we're working on it, then it's in progress, so we can just set it to in progress, right? But how do we know it's in? So we just go in and edit it. Okay, so we need editing. Well, no, because I want to see where it is. I want to be able to go and see a visual representation. Oh, so you need swim lanes. Yeah, that's a whole new screen and a whole new layout, and we haven't even got away from these requirements yet, right? So the idea is that we should be asking questions. Should. No, I'm you, Mojo. Guy in my head. Um, okay, this is a should that should be done, right? We should ask questions because we need to understand what it is we're expected to do. So if I was to go and say, I'm going to take up this task, I can't take up this task because there's a whole lot of system behavior, a whole lot of behavior that's expected of it. Like we don't have progress. We don't have this concept. So what does it mean to have progress? Well, we need to have the ability to move the progress. Okay, well, let's just let's go in here and slap a drop down on there. It solves it. What about the rest of the screen? So making sure you understand what is expected and what a compromise is, and pushing back and saying, no, well, no, hold on. What is the vision for this? Why do we need to be doing this? What is the goal? Well, I know what my goal is in my head right now, and I'm probably being, without trying, I'm being the product manager I don't want, because I'm being the product manager that's like got it all in my head and I'm not representing it in there. Now, part of that is because I don't know how to necessarily write it all down. That's not my specialty. But it is a point, right? You've got to ask the right questions and understand, where is the software heading? What are we actually aiming for here? Well, we're actually aiming for sprints. Yeah, Mojo. um, I really do hope Mojo starts to stream a bit more, because it's a good place to go and hang out. But Mojo works on a variety of different things, a lot of learning, a lot of growth. Is you know, trying to get better every day, which is and that's the way we should be doing things. He got in my head last night because we were talking, and I said I don't like the word should. Right, when people drop in streams and say you should do this, I always want people to explain, why should I do this? What is this doing for me? How do I understand it and how do I comprehend it? Because when you look at a tutorial, ads are running. I'm just gonna carry on with that thought because there's enough people in here. Um, when you follow a tutorial, it is often um, focused on one particular piece, and it doesn't give you the education you need to go beyond the tutorial. But if you take it as actual, oh, here's how I should do this, which often it's phrased as, right, this is the way to do this thing. When you get to the point where you need to do something else, your code is going to adapt, because you don't have necessarily the experience to say, oh, well, I'm going to need this now, so I need to go and look up this, or I need to understand how this interacts. So I don't like should. And I said, if I say should, you should pick me up on it. And I'm like, so now the words stuck in my head. But anyway, asking questions isn't necessary. So for me as a developer, there's clearly a vision I'm missing. There's clearly some parts I'm missing. And that's the problem. I can't just go ahead and implement seeing the overall progress on top of a planning item, because there is no progress. So I need to be able to get to progress. So, well, in this instance, that's done, by the way. That's completed. I didn't mark that as in progress. Right. In that instance, I need more requirements. I need more information about what we should be doing, because is there value in having the task be able to say stats? Yes, we could work on the tasks and show them as in progress or done or whatever. similar to how we do planning items. What's the long-term goal? Oh, sorry. Well, the long-term goal is to create a sprint, and a sprint has a start and end, and then it will get dragged through into that. So, do we want to get status on a task without the sprint? Does that add value? Yeah, well, yeah, we can work on it. So we probably should do that first. Because there is value. We still need to have the status. The status isn't going to go away. We're not going to waste any energy there. We just might end up with a different UI in the end. But hey ho, the UI is all disposable anyway, so why do we care? And it's a lot less work than getting the idea of sprints in there and getting those concepts built out before we can even worry about updating the status, which we've still got to do anyway. We can actually use the system to build the system if we start introducing status, because then we can know what we've worked on and what we haven't. So we've got our checklist. And there we go. There's our conversation. Now I was playing both sides, but sometimes a product manager isn't necessarily thinking about all the peripheral stuff. But as a developer, you don't need to be thinking about it from the technical aspect necessarily, just the usage aspect. Because you are an expert. You understand how the system is built. You understand where cost is going to come in. So in this instance, if there was no intention of ever being able to switch the status of a task anyway in the UI, which there would always be, then there's no value in doing this. But most of the backend code is switching the status. It's just when it switches, the status changes. So that all the status and events that might come off of that, it's still going to have value. There's still going to be something we need to do there. So, yeah. So, as a requirement of this, I want to see the task progress against requirements. We can't do this without it. So, again, this is why it's open to however they want to lay out the things. It doesn't really matter whether they create a planning item for that or they create a requirement of this for that, right? It fits for them, it works for them, but it doesn't affect us as developers. It sets the work aside from their planning and allows both sides of the conversation to happen in the right place. When they see the tasks, we're going to talk about whether it's useful to see the tasks or whatever from here, or just know the numbers and be able to drill through into the actual tasks, or filter this list by planning item, etc., or a group even. Maybe that's another conversation, but that's usability, right? This sounds so hard. From what respect? From what perspective? The amount of work, or just the process of going through this, the conversation. So again, the conversation to be had is, what do you want to see when? What's the value and what's the cost? So from a developer perspective, what that conversation I've just had is, look, we need to do this anyway. This work will need to be done regardless of which path you choose. We can get that done now and you can see the results of it. So you can start contemplating, maybe you want to make some changes, maybe it doesn't work quite so well. So we can get that done in the next sprint, next hour probably. Or bear in mind I just threw out a time estimate, which is not a good idea. But we can get that done in a relatively amount in this sprint, and you can see that, or we can spend time building out all the sprints concepts and the backlog and moving things around and doing all that now, and that'll delay the entire thing because we don't think we'll get that done in one sprint. So so it's just that conversation needs to happen, and the developers do need to go off and think about the actual work requirements now. So, but as a product, as a developer, no, as a developer, I should be able to mark the status of a task. As a developer, when I'm ready to work on a task, I should be able to mark it as in progress. So hold on. Well, what's it? Again, I'm trying to voice the conversation that should be had, because developers don't ask questions. They sit there and make assumptions about things based upon what they know or what they see in the system or what they've seen before. They need to explicitly state things and get it written down, because the business might not understand this rule. This needs to be understood. So by default, a task is set to in backlog status, right? It's not to be done. It's backlogged. And again, the idea is that the tasks list there is stuff the developers have agreed to. It's stuff the developers have asked for or the developers have built themselves. These are things that need to be, this work that needs to be done and can be evaluated, sized, and prioritized. A task is set to in backlog status. When the developer is ready to work on we're not going to introduce a status. We're going to modify this, right? Because right now we don't have the concept of in sprint. So we'll have backlog in progress done, right? When the developer has finished working on the task, they should be able to mark the task as done. So we can create that requirement, right? Now, from the developer perspective, we can add a task. We can say create dropdown on UI for task status, provide an edit form. So again, we are opening up more requirements. We don't have an edit form for this right now. So this is where the developers get into the actual figuring things out, right? Provide an edit form for the task, similar to planning item. When it's selected, the detail is an edit form, right? We also need to be able to say when. So create update endpoint. The endpoint for put, update task, task command. Again, it's up to the developers how they task this out, whether they think it's all one piece. Introduce status on task, similar to PI status. Produce integration event for updated, right? So that's that part. Again, view consume status on task, update receiver, update handler to update task, include status, update GraphQL, update view, entity, SQL to contain status string, right? So these tasks now we get to see if the system's working properly. Again, from a product standpoint, this is what they want to see. As a developer, when I'm ready to work on a task, I should be able to mark it as in progress by default a task. Now, they might provide a UI. They might do that. You know, they might explicitly say you should be able to edit that. But if the developers can go along and do tasks, there you go. So create drop down on UI for task status, create update endpoint, view consume. Right. So we can click on here now and we can see back to the requirement that drove this task, the requirement that drove this task, and the requirement that drove this task, right? So these tasks now are things that we want to work on. So again, from the developer perspective, they can be worked on independently. They actually can be. So someone could take this, someone could take this, and someone could take this. Again, communication. We need to talk. We need to make sure that, yeah, but we could consume this, we could update this, and we could actually do the UI. All could be worked on in parallel. If it's broken down as a requirement, it can't be. And again, there's a lot of implicit behavior that goes on when we do this. And maybe some teams are better at this. Maybe some teams have worked this out and figured it out in Jira and it works. But the goal is to make that much simpler. So I'm not going to, we're going to get into how we break down, how I'm thinking of branching and stuff later. Because right now, it's hard for me to figure out what about subtasks and reordering. I hated Monday for project management because you were limited to like one level of subtasks. So subtasks, if we're going, so the goal here is to try and get into that small, achievable things, right? So what would a subtask look like? Well, these are kind of the subtasks, right? But that's for the developers to worry about. The developers need to worry about this. So once the developers are talking about it, the goal would be to identify what they need to change in the actual software and point this. So this is what's in my vision. This is what's going to get pointed. So that from a planning perspective, the points will show, and maybe the points in this one show as 8, and the points in this one show 4, and the points in this one show 2 or whatever, right? Because the goal would be that they'd sum the points of the tasks underneath them, right? Essentially giving them, and then this would show the points for that, right? So this would give them an idea of what work is involved. It gives the developers the ability to lay things out. Nice, sorry about. So, yeah. So these tasks would be what's understood. So yeah, maybe we do get into that. Ultimately, this will look more akin to this because it will have comments, changes. It will track its changes. It will track comments, etc. So it is going to start looking a little bit more like this panel down here. Still got to figure out why requirements isn't loading this screen. Oh, nope. How I use buttons. No provided for message service. No. 11. Is planning views detail. It's not standalone. I'm not going to worry about that right a second. So yeah. So I get why subtasks might be a thing. So what my intention is to try and not do too much. I'm trying to work on this as I go and test it as I go now at this point and see if it's working for the workflow. So this works very well. This does exactly what I'm thinking, in that these tasks now link back to this one requirement, right? So yeah. So let's go but that being said, this branch is going to be covering all for right now, because again, I've got to get into figuring out what that workflow looks like. You know, how does that function as far as branching goes? Because right now I don't have any identifiers. So yeah, but bit by bit, day by day. So you should be able to be deleted. And you should be able to be deleted. I think you can get deleted as well. But yeah, we'll worry about that afterwards. Okay, so this is feature task status. So these branches are going on too long. This does not support the way that I'm building these right now does not support short-lived branches that are testable, etc. Now, each one of these is actually testable, right? I could validate this piece. I could validate this piece. I could validate this piece independent of each other. Integration tests potentially, but I could validate them. I could test them. QA might not be able to do that. So QA might be looking at the requirements on the planning item over the individual tasks, but they can be back and forth. So today's stream will be a bit longer. I am off today, so I'm not finishing up in 15 minutes like normal. I was going to open Discord, but I do have a headache, so I've been kind of nursing that throughout this stream. We'll say it's Friday. He likely won't shout out his own stream, but One Line does stream on Fridays and does community day, where you can join the Discord if you want to, or interact and get other people's opinions and thoughts. And very worthwhile hanging out there. One Line has worked on a financial management project for several months, doing the UI and going through the entire process, which has been fascinating to watch, and you know, a lot of credit for just the amount of effort and energy goes into building out a UI, UX, etc. And is now moving on to other projects and potentially sharing work projects as well as he worked through things. So, which will be interesting to see. But you know, all sorts of excellent stuff to come there as well. Sally, good morning or good day. Hope you're well. So One Line is also the reason why I get shout outs done in my stream now, because I am terrible at doing shout outs. But yeah. Okay, so feature task stats. We're going to branch foundation as well, because we are going to be updating foundation. So there's no point in not. And right now, because of a quirk, this should be named the same as the branch that it's going to join up to in Liquid Sky. And Rider allows me to track both repositories at once in here, and I have foundation. This is actually a completely different repository, and it just looks like any other project. So yay, Rider. Okay, so let's go back to the UI. Did I stop running? No, I didn't stop running. I branched that without. So create dropdown on UI for task status is one of the tasks. Create the update endpoint. What would be most interesting to see right this second from the viewer perspective that is now dropped completely away? Would you prefer to see UI stuff? or would you prefer to see the back end come together to produce those events, etc., and do that piece? Those are the two options right now. I'm open to ideas. My monitor just went off and then came back on. That's not good. Maybe I've got a power cord loose. Hello, Loki. You're good, bud. Come sit down. Okay. If there's no votes, my vote will be back end since that seems to be the most flowy type. There we go. Yeah, my wife took a picture of the Northern Lights last night, which was weird to see. I enjoy the back end the most. Then that's where we will go. Okay, so we're working in tasks, right? Tasks is where we are going to be. And we are going to need to add status. So let's review planning items. So a planning item has status attached to it. And we default it to preparing. We have this curious, what would you have picked if no one had voted? Back end. It's the most, like one line said, it's the most flowy piece. It will wire things up, and I can make the data work, and then the UI can come afterwards. I'm going to start asking that a little bit more of people because I would like to know if there's pieces of this application that you like to see more. I'd be interested to understand. So I am going to start offering that, especially as now we are clearly getting to the point where tasks are starting to show their usage, or show the way that I'm contemplating how they're used. I'm going to ask a little bit more for, thoughts and opinions, and also what do you want to see? Because I'll focus my efforts there. So in status, we just stored a string. Do we want to mimic that pattern? I think we're going to have to for right this second. So the way that status works is realistically the client is driving that data. There's no validation on the server. The server just takes what it's been given, which is not a really solid design decision overall, but the intent is to come around and stabilize this a little bit more. I think that it's safe to follow this pattern for right now. It's especially being that we are going to flex this, right? If we start putting in some rules, there's more to change afterwards when we actually figure out what that backlog status really looks like. So I'm going to mimic the pattern. We're going to add string status, and we're going to do something very similar, right? So private string status equals backlog. Public string status. There you go. Now, once we do that, we need to go to the infrastructure configurations, task configuration, and make sure that that's tracked there. Right. And in the scripts for tasks, we're going to need to do requirement identifier, status. Let's look at planning items. There we go. That's backlog. Okay. So we have that, and now on task, we have the status, we have the configuration set up. So let's do that, include status as field on task, default to backlog. So this definitely supports the development requirement, but I do end up with a hard-coded string in the application, which is not really solid. What we'll end up doing is having a conversation about whether the status should be configurable, whether the status should be configurable by the core system or by the independent client systems. Because of the eventing nature of this, right? If we make that, so the backend system is called Control Tower. That's not been on stream. Mojo is actually going to help me a little bit with that and do some of that work. And then when we're ready with Control Tower to start demonstrating that, we'll start using that a little bit more. But the idea would be Control Tower manages all shared data, can see the tenants, can manage tenants, etc. Because again, if this is going to become a product, the one thing you have to consider is what does billing look like? What does all that look like? So I'm very much focused on that. But yeah, so maybe these lookups end up being system controlled globally, or they end up being tenant controlled. But we can kind of dig into that, and leaving them as strings right now is a safe choice because it gives us more flexibility while still maintaining the behavior. And we have control, right? It's not like another developer is going to jump in and go, oh, well, I want to add a different status, and just breaks everything. And we haven't built anything off of these rules yet that can't be undone. Okay, so that's introduced the task. So now let's go to our tests and look at our application. When adding a task, so we need to do task is added with backlog status. So and t.status equals backlog. Now that should pass because it defaults. So if we create a new one, we should get the status of backlog, right? But it's worth explaining that. When updating a task, here we go again to this pattern. Tell me I dodged it. I dodged it. I left it. I'll do that later. Oh dear. That test is missing when updating a task. So again, my testing style is not normal. So the problem here is you might change different things, right? You could change the title, the description, or the status. So what do you test here? Hey Mojo, good morning. Hope you are well. Ow, knee. So my normal style of testing throughout the application is pretty much when doing this, these things happened, right? But updating a task is challenging because I could update 3 different fields. So how do I test that? Because status is updated, right? So when updating status of task, status is updated, fact, description, and title remain we'll go with that, right? So our subject here, our system under test, our subject is the update task.handler. Our subject. We need a repository. We need to specify that task is view task. Using task equals tasks domain dot entities dot task. Repository null. What don't you like about that? Oh, do I have it defined already as that in the tests? Okay, I do. Okay. I have it in the global. Private task equals null. So what it's saying is task.status.is in progress, right? And that is title. So let's make them that works. Title description. Okay. Arrange act. Whoa, easy there. So we're going to create a repository. We're going to get the identifier. So if we get identifier by async, that doesn't exist. That's nice that it thinks it exists. Could actually create an extension method to do it, but whatever. And then we're going to say it returns backlog task. Morning, Napalm. How you doing? And then we update the task. That is the handler. And then the act is just calling that, and we're marking it as in progress. Okay, so that's fine. Save the summative. Nice. So this is first default arg.is any entity by identifier spec of task returns new task. So we can't return a new task because it's got a protected constructor. So what we use here is we use the object builder dot build entity of task, and this takes a goes to no, we give it a new, don't we? New. And then we give it the fields that it's going to be. So identifier equals task identifier, title equals title, description equals description, status equals. It would be defaulted, but I'm gonna explicitly save it. And then that would be created by user ID identifier equals that. These properties have to match up to the properties on the task. There's no. Maybe there's a way I can write the API that will understand that this is a new object that looks like this, but I don't quite know how to do that yet. So figure that out. But that's an anonymous method, anonymous object that you pass into build entity, and it goes and uses private constructors and reflection to build an object and set its properties. Okay, so this is our updating the status of a task. It won't build because this doesn't exist. So let's make this exist. I got to be careful there. Update task does exist, but in a completely different area. That's not the one I'm after. I'm after here. So let's create update task. right? So this update task here is task application tasks, right? And then let's create the nested type handler. Again, I'm just trying to make this build before it fails. Let's create the nested type command. That's interesting. Record command. Let's do it this way. Status. Command and handler. And then let's make that method. And let's add that. Right. Oh, back with the dark humor again. um, value task. So I'm just getting that to build. So the application will build, even though it's not right. And we're going to run that test, and it's going to fail because it does nothing. It's going to throw not. It should throw not implemented. So again, here I'm writing this test, and I know that it's going to fail, but I'm doing it so that if I see anything other than not implemented, then something else is going wrong, right? So I should see not implemented exception. So I know the parameter count mismatch. See, where object builder. So my object builder is not actually right. So I'm not even executing the test because this is failing, right? So my parameters on my constructor are probably wrong, right? So if I go to task, I have tenant identifier, right? We have those fields. And I didn't pass the tenant identifier. And again, this is the documentation of my system. I always want to drop the I there, right? So again, there's no code, there's nothing implemented. What I want to see is the not implemented. I don't want to see errors in the configuration, right? It should still function because it's got the bare minimum to function. Parameter count mismatch. What else am I missing there? Title description created by identifier. Oh, you still want to fail. Tenant identifier. Description created by identifier. Requirement identifier. Oh, I don't need that, do I? Oh, status. What am I doing? In respect to DP, I'll key the die. Okay, just to be clear, I understand and appreciate the dark humor. I would love to engage in it because I think it can be funny. However, I don't know how people on Twitch are going to take it, and they might not see the funnier side of it. So that is the only reason I raise it. Do I even have a clue what I'm doing here? Am I just guessing? Created by requirement? Is it? Is this because I've got? Oh, because it's going to be GUID. So is the fact that I don't want to upset anybody else. That's true. There we go. So now we actually have a valid failing test. Pick. Hi, Melanitonics. How's it going? So, project's been good. I can't really demonstrate very much, but recently I've been working on getting the tasks built out and linking them to the requirements. So, this is a task. If I click on anything, it'll break because it's not running. This is a task that we've just created. So, this is what we're kind of working on right now. And this is the requirement that's associated with this is what spawned this task. So, it's coming along. It's starting to show the vision. Okay, so now we need to make this pass, right? So notice I'm only passing in status. I don't have any requirement to pass in title. I don't need to go beyond the thing that I'm doing right this second because again, I'm iterating over this thing, right? So this needs to be an I command a result, right? This doesn't need to return a value or anything, so it's okay as is. And this needs to be an I command handler of I command result. Oh, of command. Oh, yeah, command, comma result. Sorry, my brain's not braining right. So this looks similar. It just returns result. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, you're building a game and you're seeing that progress and it's good to start to get considering the amount of underpinning work I've had to do to get to this point. It's good to start seeing it demonstrate the things that I'm saying I want to do. You know, when it's all like, oh, imagine this and imagine this and here's what I'm thinking, it's a little hard to follow. And as much as I can show the code, it doesn't demonstrate it very well if you can't see it. So recently, again, we've now got planning and tasks as separate areas of the system. So if you go into planning, you get the original list. You can go in there, add requirements to planning items, and then add a task to that requirement. And those tasks appear in here, and this links back to the actual planning item associated. This view is something that I will continue to consider the value of, and you know, like, do you need to know the title of the planning item on this screen? Probably not. It's more of a demonstration than anything else. Do you need to know it's linked to a planning item? That's probably more likely. And navigate away. So, yeah. So let's get this working. So first thing we do is we need a task. No, we don't do the get await to get result here because we got async await properly. Import, that's a shared spec. That's pretty much the most used spec in the entire system. That just saves me writing a query that says from X in task where task identifier equals task identifier, you know, first to default, right? That spec is doing that work for me by doing that. So it saves it. It saves a bit, and then cancellation token none. That's hilarious. Cancellation token. It pulled from it used the fact that I'd built a test there, because the tests aren't set up the same way. It used that fact. So right now here is if I write if task is null, right? To me, that documents the fact that it could be null, right? So what I do is I do argument null exception dot throw if null task. So it's an explicit, it shouldn't be null, right? There's no reason we should get to here and it be null. So if that happens for whatever reason, the system should blow up, right? As quickly as possible, as catastrophically as possible. I want that to blow up because that should never appear, right? So I can deal with that later. Now we have a task. Task dot. He said we have a task. Now we have a task. Task dot status equals status equals command dot status. Oh dear, we don't have the ability to set the status because we made it a read-only field. So on task, we now need to do public. Yeah, that works. Alicia. She's a dev I found relatively recently. She seems to stream for long periods, but I haven't figured out the schedule yet because but she's building a game like a Pokemon game. She was also working on TwitchBot stuff last time we were in there, but .NET developer using I'm gonna say Vue on the front end, but a really good bubbly place to go and hang out and super smart person to watch and just yeah. So status equals status, and the benefit of having the method is I can do add domain event, right? New task status changed. Benefit of doing this is if I want to make the system react to certain things happening, I can make the system react to certain things happening from within here. I don't have a need for this right this second. So there's no point in saying that I've done it in other areas. I've added the events and stuff, but I haven't really found the need for them. I think there will be a benefit to having the system that changes them trigger that because that domain event is only published when this data is saved to the database. So I think there will be a benefit to them later on. Just as yet, there's very few of them that I actually need because realistically, this is a lot of CRUD, right? These components here spend most of the time being CRUD objects. They're not logic. There's no behavioral pieces to these. The behavior is all kind of inferred by the rest of the system. Anything that needs to be reacted to, the changes, etc. Again, I could lean into that a little bit and publish events that say this was changed, this was changed, this was changed, this was changed. Maybe that's the way I go once I get deeper into changes. But the problem is that these don't understand the data that's been changed all the time. So if I set that pattern, that becomes harder and it becomes riskier. So for instance, if I change the assigned user of a planning item, right? The planning item doesn't have the username. It has a GUID, right? So even if I publish the user was changed from here, I still have to go and enrich that data somewhere. So that's why the pipeline exists. So right now, all the changes are diffed here and published out from here. So that if things need to react to just the value changing, like if the assigned user was changed, and that's all I care about, I don't need to listen for, was it changed to X user? I can just publish the notification, the user was changed. You need to know about this, right? So and I can enrich that data eventually by the pipeline can still go and say, oh, by the way, the user was changed from Bob to Jeff, right? But I can alert people quicker using that method. But if I do all that in here, it does make it harder because these independent components don't have context to the data, so it doesn't add value to lean into that as a change system. If I wanted to react or publish different events to the system because of that data changing, then yes. So again, in the instance of the let's say what can I use as an example right now that's kind of solid? If the Um, I'm not sure I could. I'm not sure I actually have a use case for this. So yeah, I'm trying to think. But like, if I do have a few where I publish different things based upon so subscribers, requirement created, deleted, updated, requirement planning item updated. These do publish events, but ultimately they end up publishing. Um, Still want to do my Terraform? So not in the mood. Yeah, yeah, I'll happily do Terraform. There we go. I'm ready. This guide tells me everything I need to know. Oh wow, that's way too much reading. Eh. Deployment stuff is, I mean, I looked at Pulumi, and we did do some tinkering with Kubernetes, but I just can't. I want to make progress in the application, but in the same, I think it'll take me a long time to get up to speed with uh, tooling like that. So yeah, okay. So anyway, the point was that I can make the system publish events that I can then react to and change, etc. So in the case of requirements, right? If a requirement is changed, I actually listen to that from two different things because it also triggers the publishing of an integration event for the planning item as well. Um, that sort of DevOps is slow like dev at times. Well, I, again, I think the DevOps aspect is a very important aspect that needs its own time and own dedication, but should also, be a very much a part of the discussion of the development. Um, like DBAs. If you have dedicated DBAs, they should be discussing the queries that you're going to change, the queries you're going to build, and the tables you're going to add to the system in the planning. Um, we keep siloing off these groups, so DevOps has gone back to being ops again and not a part of the developer team. Um, and they just sit on their own. It's like, oh, hand it off to DevOps, and DevOps is now the new word for ops. So so right now I just need to update the status, but it's an explicit action. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make an explicit action that says, okay, update the status. There we go. So now does our test pass? You best pass. I'm deleting you. There you go. Okay. So what we validated there is that when we call update with in progress, we get in progress. This is the extract field, replace two occurrences, expected status. I might be getting a snack because I'm getting hungry. And there we go. So when updating status of task, now if we do when updating title and description of task, right? Similarly, we're going to say fact status is unchanged. Fact, title, and description are updated, right? Oh, come on, help me out. um, we're going to do something similar. So I'm going to, okay. So we're going to move these facts. I'm going to place them there. So again, here we're saying task.status dot is expected status, and that is backlog, right? And that these two right become that. So now we need to add in the ability to even do that. So I'm going to do expected title, expected description. So we need to add in string title, string description. We don't need to worry about tenant in here because tenant is tracked by the fact that we're working on a task we know the ID of. We have validated we're a user. Now we don't validate that we're a user in that tenant, so that's a challenge. If anyone's paying attention, I just introduced a failing test. I broke an existing test, which is not a good thing to do. I'm just going to take a quick break. I just need to step away. I'll be right back. Hello all. Sorry about that. Radio Patrick, hello. How's it going? It's going good here. Day off work. Just went to get the dogs, and so they are Staffordshire Bull Terrier, pit bulls, whatever. They're mixed. They're mixed breed. Loki looks more like he has Labrador in him than anything else, but they are definitely from pits. But my wife likes to put clothes on the dogs, and Taylor had his sweatshirt on, a little pink sweatshirt. Taylor likes going playing and digging in the mud. So I just went to see a dog that looked more mud than dog. So my living room is now covered in dirt because she just walked it straight through the house. So I guess I know what I'm doing after stream. So yes, and my wife is going to get a I told you so. This dog is absolutely disgusting. Yeah, they like playing outside. My backyard, um, the soil is well tilled. Yeah, yep. I'm going to be in the bad books because I'm going to have to bath the dogs today now. Uh, and Loki's a squirmy one. Taylor's not. She's not aggressive, but she's more nippy. She's more likely to to nip at my hands. Okay, so let's get this in. Let's get this feature in. So the expected title and description, we need to update them. So we're going to pass them in there, and then these tests are now both going to fail, right? And they're both going to fail because I broke. Status is updated. Description and title remain unchanged because I don't touch them yet. Okay. Title and description update are failed. Right. So the status is unchanged. Yep, we've confirmed that it didn't change. It actually did change. But yeah. One way of testing that would be is if I did publish a domain event, I could put in okay, and it shouldn't publish a domain event when it remains the same. And the way the code was, it had published the domain event, and now I just write an if not different, if changed, then update the value and save it. Okay, so we need to go into our handler and update the title and description. So we'll go into something else. Exercise time, but one more time. Xcoding. Another great stream to hang out in. Very smart developer, very friendly. I get to hang out in Xcoding streams a lot, but yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. Enjoy your exercise, one line. I'll probably still be here when you get back. Okay, so we're going to create a method on here, and then we're going to talk about when I deem it necessary to build a domain service. So title equals title, description equals description. So there's no logic around this sort of stuff. Right? And I do need to publish an integration event. What I tend to do is if this starts to get more complicated, which it invariably will, is I move this behavior out into a domain service so that the actual figuring out if something's changed and should be invoked is done by the handler, and then the actual behavior of updating, etc., is done in the domain service. Because this layer starts to get very cluttered, and it's not an area where I want lots of logic to be necessarily. The domain service lives over here, right? Yeah, the domain service lives in the domain and is related to actual behavior of the application. Generally, I don't worry too much because it's just updating the object. So the object, which does live in the entity still does live in the domain, is publishing events that then I react to. So I don't have any major issue with putting it in a handler, but if it starts to get a bit more complicated, then what do I do? So doing this way, doing the TDD style, does allow me to kind of think about things in steps. So it's okay to change things. It's okay to update things, right? So right now, I'm going to break the first test. The second test might actually pass. Why do I have a publish item on my mind? I don't want that. So yeah, my second test now passes, but at the cost of my first test, because now to pass them in, I had to pass in blank strings, which now updates them. So am I expecting the command for update task to be the changes, or am I expecting the command for update task to be the current state of the data? Right. So if I put in title and description there, this test will pass again, but it technically has updated it. So yeah, I'm raising it. I'm not raising it like, oh, there's some amazing insight here. I'm just kind of sharing the thought patterns. I'm sharing the process I'm going through out loud. So for right now, I don't want to get involved in building out services and building out that for these three fields, but I do need to tell the system, oh, by the way, you changed. And if we look back at our requirements, right? Endpoint for the port, update the task, introduce status on task similar to PI status, produce integration event for the updated. So that is a part of what I'm expecting to happen, right? Which is a fair part of doing it. So how do I do that? Well, what we should be able to say is fact update integration event, update task integration event is queued. It's not published, it's queued in this instance, right? So task dot domain events of type task dated dot count t goes to t dot identifier task identifier dot is one. So we need an integration event. So if we go to our domain, we have events. So we got task created. We now need task updated. And I think that's record, task updated, integration, queued, identifier. We don't need status. These are one lines. So we're going to create task.cs. We're going to take that, do that, do that, do that, do that, do that. Okay. So now we have our task events. When we update the task, here, add domain event, new task updated. And here, We want that test to be in both of these. We're documenting the system. We're documenting the behavior of the system. We're not documenting. We're not just making certain things and then assuming certain things. We want to validate that. Oh, by the way, if the description and title change, then we want to publish the event, right? So there is a dedupe in there as well. It won't add the same event multiple times, so it won't fire. But now we need to validate that we don't publish that event when nothing's actually changed, because otherwise we'd just be making noise in the system. When updating task and no changes, right? Fact, no task updated event is queued, right? Fact, status, mains changed. Fact, title and description remain unchanged. I don't know how they changed, but it's just worth being explicit in sometimes. So, and no changes. Let's do that. And then let's go back up here and take the arrange and act, because again, they're very similar, right? There's no point in me wasting energy. Again, if you're new to the stream, and you have questions about what I'm doing, why or how, you're more than welcome to ask. I'm open to conversation. I'm open to chatting about the software as much as I am doing the software. If there's something specific you wanna learn about, in relation to the stream, then let me know. Status. We're gonna make status an actual private read only string. Status equals backlog. So task dot domain events dot of type task updated dot count. T goes to T dot identifier. And add is going to start in 3 minutes. I apologize, but by watching ads, it keeps pre-rolls off the stream for 40 minutes. I've got it currently set to 2 minutes every 40. Seems like for an extra 30 seconds every, to get that time period, it's fine. So task.status is status, and title is title, and description is description. So that's what we're expecting, and I'm expecting it to fail. Right now, it'll pass on the 2 because they didn't change, but it still queued the event. Just out of curiosity, specifically when building a web API, how important, useful do you find it to have a standard form for requests and responses? You mean just like a standard style, or an actual kind of an object to pass things in and out? How to study or work while having common cold. I feel like my brain is glued together. Don't. You just frustrate yourself, get hot drinks, and take the rest. Give your body the rest it needs. Don't you start as well. No. I'm a bit on the fence with my web API, whether it makes sense to bother with allowing the user to be able to expect a shared response class, for example. So right now, don't forget, this API is broken up into two sides, right? So my APIs are only write APIs, and then I have GraphQL returning data. So I don't actually have objects returning chunks of data. I always question the value in returning messages to the client, right? Especially for errors. That being said, I do kind of have the concept of a shared style. So if we go to, and this is something I want to address. So I have this tracked entity response this is a terrible name. And ultimately, it's just a, by the way, it just passes an ID back. I don't return any messages. But the idea is that if I create something, I need to return to the client the ID of the thing I created. So this tracked entity response is, it's just an ID. But I've copied it into each API right now because I'm still not sure. But ultimately, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to return, hey, by the way, you just created this thing. Here's the ID of it, the identifier, the public identifier of it. But a better example being for requests, making param names be standardized or using one particular to like update name, for example, having a param for new value. Yes. So again, my API is here for the rights. I have the parameters dumped inside of the actual class so that I don't have to worry about that standardization. I don't. I kind of like this because it gives me the ability to always. I know what parameters is. What time am I saving myself by trying to generalize it? Now, eventually, going back over what I have done and reviewing, and maybe there are some common types in there. Maybe that's useful there, but um, yeah. So in this instance, when I do the put, actually, let's write the put. Oh my God. For some reason, right click on writers menus doesn't show in the same place as the offset's wrong. If I create the class for put, right, make an absolute mess of it. That's a put now. Um, this object is only different in that this now has public string status, right? So in that instance, maybe there is a shared object, but I'm not worried about creating this small thing. And because I'm doing very small things, I don't need mappers, I don't need any of that. So I would say build out enough that you see the actual patterns appear and then consider whether it's useful to make a generic object that you can base things off, or is it saving you more time? I know you're trying to stuff, things into the wrong places. Um, and also when it comes to APIs, is returning bool is error on a 200 reasonable, or do you just want to use HTTP status to represent? If it doesn't work, it errored. Um, yeah, we're going to get back to this in a second. This is going to create request dot status. Why did you not override? There's no suitable method for. So this doesn't need a tracked entity response in this instance, by the way. So that's interesting that I don't do that. And that just needs type results to okay. That's why. That was why it was breaking. Because I'd specify post there. Okay. Yeah, my response shows the error message is purely to explain what went wrong server side, so the client can print an explanation as well. Um, yeah, I'm still not sure. Like that's the update. That's the put, right? So they've got almost the exact same object. So title and description stay the same. But I'm not saying new title or new description or updated title, updated description, because I'm actually passing the current state. That's what it's going to be, right? But again, on the client side, what are you returning there? Are you returning man? I do have the concept of like saying why something happens. My intent is to basically, when an error occurs, I'm going to log that out and use that message there, um, rather than um, sending it down to the client. Because the client, if an error occurs, then the client is like, okay, this I can't do anything. There's no, what is the explanation you need to send to the client from the server? Um, and again, now I'm reviewing that typed tracked entity response. That's just that's an identifier of the object that you just created, and that's there so that the client can get down off me. Stop. You're not going back outside playing in the mud. No, no. You've got water. You've got food. You've been fed. You're just a little filthy beast right this second, aren't you? Um, yeah. So yeah, a failure on the server side is a failure on the server side. I don't need to provide, and that depends very much on your API and what it's built to do. For me, this API is saving data. If it errors, it just doesn't save the data. So your request failed, then it doesn't save. Um, that's why that's there rather than if task is null, because that an if task is null documents that it can be null. This says I really don't want it to be null. I'll have to put my code on GitHub at some point and take a look at it with you. Your API code is structured entirely differently than mine, or at least appears to be. My radio station API is all C# minimal API. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to uh to go through and talk about stuff. That's absolutely fine. Certainly use a second look to get some validation on the EF stuff I do. Yeah, anytime you want to do that, let me know. Either on stream or off stream. Um, yeah, so I like fast endpoints. The irony is a fast endpoints is built on top of minimal API. I don't like minimal API because for very basic uses it's okay, but then you quickly have to get um, creative with the structuring and the design, and you end up building things that look like controllers. Or this. So this fits more closely with my way of thinking about endpoints, right? That they're aligned to verbs right this second, but these could be the general action or whatever. But they keep it all focused on one piece. Uh, yeah. You're not going back out playing in mud. No, lay down. Okay. So update task. So the test for this, no changes, right? So we say, why is this failing? This is failing because we're publishing the event still. We don't want to be publishing an event. So let's go and update task. We go in here, we go to update status. Oh, well, hold on. It's publishing the event. So let's change this to say if title equals title or description equals description. And we'll get into we'll get into case sensitivity later on. Um, oh yeah, as soon as you need states and runtime data storage, then the minimal API makes real little sense. It just makes more clutter to me. It is very good for getting something up and running quickly. It just makes more clutter. So I'm like, eh. So the status is still triggering it, so we know we need to go update status. I'm deliberately being slower here, by the way. Um, if status equals status returned. There we go. So now we won't update these unnecessarily. We won't publish the event unnecessarily. Lesson learned, you cannot unit test the methods in Minimum API. It's integration test only. Yeah. Well, because they're functions that are not, you have to, again, you have to start building structure in there to be able to test things. I don't unit test these, or I wouldn't unit test these anyway, because the amount of infrastructure these need, endpoints and whatnot, I'm more likely to integration test them anyway. And it actually was something I was considering doing today instead of doing the coding stuff. I was considering, oh, history just ran into this. You might as well use controllers to get around it. Yeah. I was considering looking at how would I set up integration testing and whatnot, because I want to use um, test containers and I want to set that up and like, but it's just the amount of time it's going to take to configure that stuff. I know it's valuable, but I honestly believe, and again, I'm happy to be, if you feel I'm wrong on this, I feel that the way the code is structured, the way the application is structured so far, it is not going to be difficult to figure out integration testing. I think it supports that in a way that if I build it as a monolith, that integration testing would be very scary. But I can start on something as simple as, attachments. Um, Again, I think minimal APIs were introduced. This is just my opinion. Um, I think minimal APIs were introduced for Express to capture the people that like building Express APIs really quickly. I think they were built because they look exactly the same as Express.js. I think that's why they were built as that because it just and if you look at like they've got the now we get rid of the whole public main, the public class stuff at the beginning, the program CS stuff. It's just straight into the code. That was built for people to get into .NET quicker and build websites and build APIs quicker in .NET. And minimal APIs look like Express, etc. So, but I don't think they serve the long-term projects. And again, that's the problem. You start with that, and all the tutorials like, oh yeah, look, you can use minimal APIs and you can get up and running. Now go off and build your application. And in 5 or 10 years, we're going to go into an organization and see an API that's built purely minimal API and they created some sort of crazy structure around it to support making it more flexible. Yeah. But even before I saw endpoints and before I saw Dallas endpoints, before I saw that, I really wanted to achieve that because I hate controllers. But minimal APIs didn't check the box either. Okay, so we have an endpoint. We have we can call that endpoint. It will send the update. We have the status. We have the update details. We have um, unit tests around that part. I struggle to figure out where to put non-controller methods in my work code. That's because your work code is not structured in a way that supports that very clearly. You have your services, but they're just big dumping grounds beyond the big dumping grounds that are the controllers. So yeah. And service, the word service is like, I don't, I haven't created many domain services right this second because again, I'm struggling with the why do I want to do this? But planning item domain service, update planning item, right? this is done because this all happens here. This is the like what I'm avoiding doing with task because again I'm starting to see the same pattern again. I actually think this needs to do a little bit differently. I think it needs to say, okay, if any of these return true, then mark the user updated, etc. or something. But we don't have who did this yet. We don't track the last person that changed it, which is what we're about to talk about there. So again, this is a command. I have no idea or recording of who did it. So I think the one thing software is hard. There's no right answer. There's no easy solution. There's just make it work, but be comfortable with what you're doing. So this needs a source user identifier, right? GUID source user identifier. That is there. That command, that constructor is there just to force you to have this here. Some things are technically endpoints because they're using jQuery. I kind of wish they were split. Let's make the test pass first. User.get user identifier. I'm not adding a lot of value in doing this. I'm just making sure that I do track this information. It can go on the event. It can trace through. I wish a lot out of this code. Yes. Private. Lock on. Lock off. Private. Read only. Read user identifier. And what we want to say is update task and t.source user identifier equals user identifier. So we're going to do task updated identifier. That won't happen as yet, but that's fine. So again, I'm just validating that the event comes from the source user identifier. That's handled. So these all fail now if it builds. Hey, BBB, how you doing? Nice. Still haven't found my reason for using Aspire. Okay, so now we need GUID source user identifier there. Need that there. You need your hearing tested, mate. Command.source, you should identify command.source. So this is going to pass by virtue of the fact that I've had to change the code to deal with that. TBD has the uncanny ability to make me think Twitch or stream has crashed by making no noise and no movements for extended periods. I'm sorry. I don't. It takes a lot. Believe it or not, I actually have to focus quite a lot to make sure I'm always talking. Especially if I go into thinking mode. That's yeah. The irony is that I'm not sitting still. My legs are. I'm fidgeting all the time. Yeah. Okay. So we've got updating task done, right? So let's update task, publish. Oh, we didn't publish the integration event. That's the part we need to do. Ah, yeah. Well, I will try and make more noise. So we validated that. Now this next part can't be unit tested in its current form. This is definitely more integration testing. So we need to listen to the task updated event. So again, the way the system works is when a command, when we send this information, we focus on storing the data first. That's the primary concern. We save the data, and then as a result of saving the data, the interceptor, the entity framework interceptor will publish the domain event, which is actually a write to another table. That table is being constantly checked by by a background worker, and it will pull that out and then publish that information. The reason I do it that way is you've guaranteed that it's saved in the database, so you don't publish events that tell a lie. Because if you just have everything react to the change and say, oh, well, you updated this, therefore we need to publish the integration event. We could publish it into integration event, then that write fails and that data's gone. So I only publish the integration event once I've consumed it from the database, because that database record existing means that the entire transaction that was writing the data succeeded. Sometimes DBD is focusing very hard. Yeah. What do I want for breakfast? Or what do I want for second breakfast? Because today I'm being a hobbit. Um, yeah. Now I'm really mindful of it. Thank you. I'm trying not to sit here quietly now. So in here, publish integration. So these classes are named after the action they're going to do, right? So this is the event that's going to be triggered, and this is the actual thing that's going to happen, rather than saying task updated integration publish, right? Not going there. Not going there. Now, these two events are almost identical. So in planning item, what I did is I created a planning item publisher, and that's there. So let's follow that same pattern. Publishers, task publisher. It's not the quietness, just wiggle your head a little. Maybe something moving in a stream overlay. Overlays. Hold on. We want to invest some time doing things for the stream. Actually, on that topic, I did have an idea that once I got to a certain point with the application, right, that I would introduce the ability for, just for fun, for the stream to be able to add tasks. So kind of like do task whatever and have the card kind of drop on the screen. So I did have the idea to spend some time doing some sort of interaction with the task system um, as a stream component, whether it be like points redemption or something. But I did think about trying to lean into that a little bit more and do a little bit more interactivity. But I was like, that's going to take me weeks to figure out and hook in and build the bot code for and do all that. Yeah, I'll just get on with the stuff. Browser running. Yeah. So that was one of the ideas I had about introducing a little bit more interactivity to the stream. Um, so yeah. So that's just the publish, right? Yeah, that is just the publish. So what we're going to do there is we take this piece here. We create this as an iEvent publisher. And then we create protected. Okay, it's everything is okay. There you go. Wiggle head. Copy that. Let's create a method, public, protected, async task, publish task. Okay, so we have task.identifier where using let me spend my 48,000 points. I don't want to sign up for your course. You never did what I asked you to do. System task equals system.threading tasks. Oh. So this task should be uh, 1 second. Oh, my wife did make me one. Just realized how far behind my stream sync is. So yeah, I have a bobblehead. I just need to put. So we're suggesting that I make a bobblehead for the stream. So this is the event source. So this part here is event source. And then this is a new import that. Okay. So now this is a task publisher. And that takes the publisher. And then we do that. In this instance, this is the task dot created by identifier. Then in this case, so then we just copy this, paste that in there. And this is task updated. And then dated notification. Again, that's been aliased again because task updated is the event, and I want to explain that that's the integration event. And then this is task updated as a namespace. Okay. Beauty of finishing later on the stream is there will be more people streaming, potentially. Ah, like BBB himself. I'm not finishing just yet. I've got a while. So the task publisher now just brings that behavior up. So now we can just, however we get the information, here now this notification is going to be the actual user that did it. So when we publish a task, we're going to publish who. So this is going to be source user identifier. And then again, our source user identifier should be there. This is harder to test. Now, the challenge here is if I was to start publishing these first, so I can't make the change here because it will break the system. It will create duplicates. So we have the update the endpoint produce integration event. But like I said earlier on, you could work on two things at once now. If you had different teams working on components, these things could be worked in parallel. Got to start doing some work again. See y'all. Mojo, thank you very much for coming hanging out. Appreciate it. Have a great day. I'll see you in a one-line stream hopefully later on. So, you know, the consumer needs to be developed to finish this out. So update task, created endpoint, for put. We'll talk about put versus patch another time. Am I putting or am I patching? Because I'm saying here's the data. Update task, create integration event. So in our tasks application, we now have our subscribers integration event publish for publisher or task modified create to use publisher created updated event subscriber. And yeah, that should be adding a status onto task. So again, I'm going to do all this in one branch. I'm not going to do this as part of different branches because it's just for right now, for me, for my workflow, this is going to make a mess if I start doing all sorts of different branches, etc. So I'm not panicked about that. Interestingly, I don't actually need to change. I do need to change this. I just completely forgot the fact that I added status. So we go to the integration event. The integration event is stored inside a foundation because this, right now, I'm not trying to learn how to use Kafka. What's it called? Brain schema, right? I'm not using Kafka schema, so I'm not able to have client systems say, "Oh, can you tell me what this event looks like? Can you tell me what this event looks like?" The downside to that is once I change the event that publishes, I have to change all the subscribers, otherwise they're just going to break. If you do schema properly, what you can say is, okay, you can consume messages of this type, but then they'll stop consuming when they hit a certain type of message. So if you haven't updated the schema on the object, it will know, oh, I can't consume that message. So I'm just not going to consume until I can consume this type of message. So with schema in place, it would function much smoother, but it's a significant investment in time that I can't do at this point. I just don't have enough. I don't have enough energy or bandwidth to do it. So right now, Foundation is the shared library that contains these events. So once I do this and once I change the code, if I don't do the other side of this at the same time, which is to consume the event and know that the task already exists, what will happen is I just create new tasks. So I'll create duplicates all over the place. So I don't want to do that. Public string status. We need status on there. Now in our task publisher, because again, now we've consolidated it. So now we'll always publish the right status. We go and do status equals task dot status. And that should be it, right? We pull the notification, we pull the task so we can pull the details. We know we've updated it. We're just getting the latest copy of it. We go and do, that's the problem. That should be task updated. I only put the source on the event because it helps give a little bit more context. If I have to debug these, I can actually say, oh, it was the update that caused that versus the create that caused that. So it's just extra information. And the source identified does go on the event as well as core information. So it all gets wrapped up. So it's not just part of the task. So yeah, that's why all that information's there. Yeah. So let's do that. Introduce status to integration event and ensure published. Show published. Let's commit and push them. So that's those two libraries change. Okay. So overall, things are moving along. I'm gonna finish up here, get something to eat. My pre-lunch lunch. um, Overall, I think the project is going in the right direction. I think that the ideas are starting to show. I think the pieces are starting to, the effort is starting to bear fruit, I suppose is the right phrase there. I'm always interested to know what your experience is as well. If you have different experiences to me, which you will, if you have different ideas and opinions on why work fails, why you dislike agile or why you love agile, like what works for you, what environment are you working in? I would love to hear those stories. I would love to hear more about them. And you know, so if you have the chance, I would appreciate in Discord um sharing that sort of stuff as well. Because again, I'm trying to build this for developers, not for me. Napalm, thank you very much for coming and hanging out. Appreciate it. I'm glad you're your thing went well yesterday, and I will catch you later. But yeah, I think things are working. So tomorrow it's Friday. By Monday, I will probably have this piece working. Um, I don't feel there's a need to stream everything. I think it's useful to get stuff done when I can get stuff done. Um, right, this week has been a bit more productive because I've been nursing an injury, so I've not been able to do my karate stuff. Normally I would have that, but yeah. So we did these things today. We added the endpoint for the put. We did the update to the task command. We introduced status on the task, similar to the planning item status, and then we produced the integration event. So later on today, what I'll do is I'll get the consume happening and then come back and do the UI. So by Monday, what we'd expect to see here is something more akin to the planning system where we can see where we can see the thing, where we can see the status here. So we'll have an edit form. We'll be able to change the title, the description, the status of the planning item, of the task, and then that will make that a little bit more usable. Um, and then coming into next week, we'll focus on the whole sprint idea. I think that'll start to work because then we can start to build actual work to do, test it out, and validate. But yeah, so it looks like most people have dropped away at this point. So I'm not gonna raid out. I'm just gonna end the stream. Um, Again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for the conversation as always. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye all.